In this video lesson, we're going to look at the skills that you'll need to complete Spring Break assignment number 2, which is on rounding and multiplication facts. So, you'll only need a sheet of notebook paper and a pencil. We're going to start, of course, by labeling our paper. If you're doing Spring Break assignment 2, then you'll write Spring Break 2 or SBA for Spring Break assignment number 2 and the name of the assignment. I'm going to write my problem number and circle it for problem number 1. And I'm going to copy down the actual question or instruction that I'm asked. Here, the actual question is, what is 432 rounded to the nearest hundred? So that's what I'm going to write. What is 432 rounded to the nearest hundred? So 432 rounded to the nearest hundred. We've used several strategies for rounding. You could visualize it on a number line. You could use the rounding mnemonic. Mark your place. Look next door. 5 or greater. Add 1 more. 3 is 4 or less. So I'll let it rest. So 4 will rest. There are no numbers in front that'll stay the same, and numbers behind into zeros they change. I'm going to skip one line, write problem number 2 and circle it. What is 2,214 rounded to the nearest thousand? So that's my actual question. I'm asked to round to the nearest thousand. Again, by now we have several strategies for rounding. You could put this bad boy on a number line, 2,214. Let's see, if I'm rounding to the nearest thousand, that means I'm going to use 2,000 and 3,000 as my endpoints. My halfway point would be 2,500. And 2,200 is somewhere over here. 2,214 is somewhere over here. And so the nearest thousand is 2,000. So 2,214 is approximately equal to 2,000, just 2,000. Again, we have multiple strategies for rounding. I finished working that problem, skip a line. What is 544,874 rounded to the nearest, is that 100,000? I'm going to abbreviate 100,000 as H,000. Capital H for 100. So what is 544,874 rounded to the nearest 100,000? Again, we have multiple strategies for rounding this. We can visualize it on a V line as well. Since I'm asked about 100,000s, 544,874. Well, my nearest 100,000 will be 500,000 and 600,000. Again, I've gone outside of the margin, but that's okay for the sake of just showing my work. Halfway between would be 550,000. 544,000 would be around there. 544 would be close to 550, but not quite. And so that's going to roll right on back down. This is approximately equal to 500,000. It does not matter. So let me make sure I put in the correct. It does not matter which rounding strategy you use, so long as you use the rounding strategy correctly. You can use the rounding mnemonic, mark your place and look next door. 5 or greater, add one more. 4 or less, let it rest. Numbers in front into zeros, they change. Numbers in front stay the same. Numbers behind into zeros, they change. You can use the rounding mnemonic. You can use a traditional number line. You can use a V line. Any way you want. But this will be how you'll show your work for the rounding questions in Spring Break assignment number 2. So, for this part of Spring Break assignment number 2, dealing with the properties of multiplication, of course you will want to, some of these you will have to write them down. It says which property, and I'm going to abbreviate the word property with prop. Which property of multiplication is shown? And that's a question. So I'm going to copy down exactly what I have. I have 9 times opening parentheses 8 minus 4 closing parentheses equals 9 times 8 minus 9 times 4. And so I see the parentheses and the subtraction. And so this tells me, oh, parentheses, inside of my parentheses I have subtraction. And over here I don't have any parentheses, but I still have subtraction. I have 9 times 8, that's the first part here, minus 9 times 4. That's the second part here. This is the distributive property of multiplication over addition or subtraction, also just known as the distributive property. I don't have to guess, I don't have to panic. By writing it down, I'm able to think about what I'm seeing. Which equation shows the zero property? Number 2. Which equation shows the zero property? That's a 0. Of multiplication. Well, I know any number times 0 is still 0. The zero property of multiplication, that's any number times 0 is still 0. Any number times 0 is still 0. And so I look at my different options. I'm not multiplying by 0. I'm not multiplying by 0. I am multiplying by 0, and I'm not multiplying by 0. 8 times 0 equals 0 because any number times 0 is still 0. I'm going to skip a line. Number 3 asks me, which shows the associative, I'm going to abbreviate associative, property of multiplication. Well, I'm going to think of associates. Associates or groupings. And so I'm going to look for an equation where the numbers are grouped differently. The operation will be the same, the numbers will be the same, but the groupings will change. And so I see 9 times 5 times 4 equals 9 times 5 times 4. My numbers 954, 954. My numbers are the same. My operation, multiplication, 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 are the same. And so what's different? I have 9 times, the quantity of 9 times 5, versus over here I have the quantity of 5 times 4. And so it's helpful to me to write these down so that I can really think about what I'm seeing and what I'm looking for. So that way I don't feel guessy. There's no need to feel guessy. The identity property. Of multiplication. Well, I know the jingle for the identity property. Any number times 1 is that same number. Any number times 1 is that same number. The identity property talking about when you get the same number back. You have to take a number, you multiply it by something, you get the same number back. So I see 1 times 5 equals 5. I don't have to guess. By writing it down and thinking about, okay, the identity property. When will the number's identity not change? Well, I'm able to remember my jingles and answer these questions.